In an era where constant sharing has become the norm, where people broadcast every moment of their existence with crystal clear precision, there is something striking about those who remain reserved. The individuals who carry real presence, authentic magnetism, and genuine power tend to speak less. They guard certain knowledge like a flame that must not be extinguished. Carl Jung, the pioneering explorer of human consciousness, didn't merely analyze the mind. He charted the hidden landscape of our inner world. Among his most profound observations was this: when the unconscious remains unexamined, it controls your existence, and you'll mistake that control for destiny. Certain information, when revealed prematurely or indiscriminately, becomes corrupted, manipulated, turned against you, or simply misinterpreted. Perhaps most tragically, it loses its potency. This discussion isn't about using silence as manipulation. We're exploring silence as protection, as energetic maintenance, and as a deliberate decision in our overstimulated reality. By the conclusion, you'll understand why keeping certain knowledge private isn't deception. It is actually elevated understanding. We'll explore 6 hidden principles that, when disclosed at inappropriate moments or to unsuitable people, can shatter your mental equilibrium, scatter your spiritual force, and paradoxically invite the very turmoil you're attempting to prevent. Let's dive in. First, what you perceive in another person's darkness. You've experienced this. You recognize someone's destructive patterns, their repetitive cycles, their unconscious behaviors. The impulse to help arises. You believe that compassionate reflection will create awareness. However, Jung would advise restraint. People cannot acknowledge their darkness until they're psychologically prepared, and imposing that awareness creates shame, resistance, or separation. The shadow, those unconscious, disowned aspects of ourselves, isn't revealed simply because someone points it out. It emerges when the individual's consciousness is ready for evolution, exposing someone's shadow before they possess the psychological capacity to integrate. It doesn't facilitate healing, it inflicts harm. This explains why your most genuine observations often miss their mark or trigger defensiveness. Jung's framework demonstrates that genuine transformation occurs when awareness aligns with readiness, never before and never according to your schedule. If you possess this perceptive ability, safeguard it. Your capacity to see what others cannot doesn't obligate you to announce it. True wisdom involves recognizing when silence serves better than speech, when allowing others to navigate their own journey is the greater gift. Second, your true motivation for ending a connection. There is often pressure to justify our departures from relationships, but consider this: some endings aren't rooted in conflict or confrontation. They stem from energetic incompatibility, misalignment, and an internal shift that requires no external validation. When you've transcended a relationship, Jung would recognize this as psychological integration. You've evolved. Maintaining that connection would mean abandoning your authentic path. Articulating your departure to someone incapable of comprehension often sacrifices your tranquility. It opens doors to argument, manipulation, emotional coercion. Your evolution doesn't require anyone's permission. This isn't abandonment without communication. It is energetic completion. Attempting to rationalize a soul-level decision to someone functioning from ego will only draw you back into their chaos. Your serenity isn't subject to debate. Allow the silence to communicate, and let the boundary exist without explanation. Third, acts of generosity done in private. In our current landscape, where moral posturing demands recognition, performing kindness without announcement feels almost rebellious. That is precisely its value. Jung understood that authentic individuation, the process of becoming your truest self, demands internal congruence over external validation. When you act with compassion and nobody witnesses it, that is sacred territory. That is genuine work. The instant you publicize your generosity, it transforms into social capital. It ceases being pure kindness and becomes theater. The spiritual essence dissolves. Worse still, it nourishes your persona. That constructed identity Jung cautioned against. The facade designed to earn affection rather than embody truth. Your essence doesn't require an audience. It requires authenticity. Those moments when you assisted someone without documentation, without anticipating gratitude, without seeking digital approval, those were transcendent. Those were expressions of something greater working through you. When you give without attribution, whether energetically or materially, it resonates more powerfully than any announcement could. Let your higher consciousness bear witness. Let universal law record your actions, not social platforms. Fourth, your aspirations before they've taken root. There is wisdom in how seeds germinate underground. Silence nurtures possibility before a vision materializes. It exists in a delicate, sacred state. Speak prematurely, and you introduce skepticism, distortion, or envy into its space. Jung investigated psychic energy, what he termed libido, not merely as desire, but as vital force. Every intention, every ambition carries this energy. Sharing a vision too early disperses. That energy, you dilute it, you expose it to vulnerability through others' perspectives, criticisms, or disbelief. Recall instances when you shared your vision and encountered skepticism, or perhaps worse, polite disinterest. In that moment, something diminished within you. Not because your vision lacked merit, but because it wasn't sufficiently developed to withstand scrutiny. You were still cultivating it. It needed protection, not exposure. Consciousness is fertile ground, and like gestation, your concepts require time to develop. Premature disclosure resembles interrupting the baking process. The heat escapes, nothing rises properly. This isn't about concealment, it is about autonomy. Your visions deserve the foundation of your conviction before facing others' uncertainty. Continue nurturing, continue constructing, and when the manifestation becomes undeniable, explanation becomes unnecessary. You simply embody it. Fifth, your assessment of others. You might consider sharing opinions about people in your sphere harmless. But here is the overlooked truth. When you discuss others, you simultaneously reveal yourself. Jung famously observed that everything irritating us about others can illuminate our own nature. Your commentary about others frequently reflects your internal landscape more than theirs. Criticism, particularly in casual exchanges or shared social circles, often originates from your shadow. That disowned aspect harboring envy, insecurity, or fear, projected outward. Speaking from that place isn't clarity, it is projection, and others perceive it. Additionally, if your listener lacks grounding, that information becomes gossip, fuel, and weaponry, potentially used against you regardless of intent. Perceptive individuals might recognize your projection. They won't confront you directly, but they'll remember, they'll identify patterns, they'll understand your observations about others function as mirrors, not windows. Those lacking self-awareness will repeat your words, possibly distort them, perhaps reframe them differently. Suddenly, you're implicated in a narrative you never intended to create. Preserve your energy and your judgment. When tempted to discuss someone, pause and question, is this truly about them, or am I exposing something about myself? Remember, Understanding doesn't always require articulation. Some insights serve best when held internally. Sixth, the intimate details of your partnership. While everyone needs outlets occasionally, there is a crucial distinction between seeking support and exposing sacred information. Each time you reveal intimate relationship details, particularly during conflict, you're introducing external energy into protected space. Jung would characterize this as the sacred integration of opposites, anima and animus, feminine and masculine, the internal partnership. When you disrupt this dynamic through gossip, complaint, or excessive disclosure, you fracture the psychic connection. Support is valuable, but oversharing every disagreement, every vulnerability, every frustration, that is not therapeutic, that is depleting. Each depletion invites interference, envy, comparison, opinions lacking your complete context. Even supportive friends can contaminate the waters. Suddenly, someone understanding only fragments offers guidance based on incomplete information. And those fragments warp your perspective energetically. Your relationship operates at a specific frequency. Discussing it, especially from anger, disrupts that field. You begin emphasizing deficiencies, problems over potential. Jung would emphasize that relationships are transformative containers. They evolve us, but only when we protect their sacred space. When the internal dynamic faces constant external judgment, it loses transformative capacity. Consult therapists, journal, meditate, but allow your relationship to exist in sacred privacy. What remains sacred flourishes. What is excessively exposed deteriorates. Now that you've absorbed all 6 principles, take a moment. This isn't merely a catalogue of secrets to keep. It is a framework for maintaining your internal equilibrium, spiritual progress, and energetic integrity in a world constantly demanding transparency. Jung's psychology wasn't about pretense or performance. It centered on integration, achieving wholeness. Part of that wholeness involves recognizing what shouldn't be spoken, because silence isn't void, it is wisdom. When you withhold observations about others' shadows, you honor their journey. When you don't rationalize your departures, you preserve your frequency. When you don't broadcast your kindness, you allow universal forces to acknowledge it. When you don't announce your plans, you provide space for them to strengthen and emerge. When you refrain from critiquing others, you liberate yourself from your own projections. When you maintain romantic intimacy as sacred, you strengthen the bond. These aren't regulations. They're disciplines, practices of awakened consciousness, a developing soul, a life unfolding in alignment with something deeper than validation. You needn't vocalize every feeling. You needn't justify every action. In truth, the more aligned you become, the less explanation feels necessary. Next time you feel compelled to share any of these 6 things, pause and ask, does this serve my higher consciousness or satisfy my lower impulses? If this message resonated, share it with someone prepared to reclaim their peace. Comment below. Which principle resonated most powerfully, or which have you violated previously, and what did that teach you? If you're pursuing self-awareness, energy work, and elevated consciousness, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom for content that speaks directly to your essence. Thank you for your presence here. Now go safeguard your power.